The call to duty. Captain Elias stood on the balcony of his quarters, gazing at the stars. He loved the night sky of Earth, with its countless shining lights. Each star reminded him of the adventures he had experienced as a soldier in the Galactic Federation. But tonight, something felt different. A sense of unease settled in his chest, as if the stars themselves were whispering warnings. Suddenly, his communicator beeped. Elias rushed inside, his heart racing. It was a distress signal from the planet Zereth, far from Earth. He quickly activated the screen, revealing a tense scene. Princess Lyra, the royal leader of Zereth, appeared on the screen, her face pale and worried. "Captain Elias," she said, her voice shaking, "we need your help. The warlord Krom has launched a coup. He wants to take over our planet and destroy our royal family." Elias felt a rush of urgency. He had heard of Zereth and its beauty. It was known for its advanced technology and rich culture. But now it was under threat. He could see the fear in Lyra's eyes, and it made his heart ache. "I will help you," he replied, his voice steady. "Tell me what I need to do." "Time is of the essence," Lyra said, her expression fierce. "We must act quickly. Krom has powerful allies and a strong army. If we don't stop him soon, he will seize control of Zereth." Elias nodded, determination filling him. He had faced many dangers before, but this felt personal. He had always fought for justice, but now he would fight for an alien royal family. "I'll gather my team and leave for Zereth immediately," he promised. After ending the transmission, Elias took a moment to collect his thoughts. He knew this mission would not be easy. Zereth was an alien world, filled with unknown challenges. He packed his gear, his heart pounding with anticipation. As he prepared, memories of his past battles flashed through his mind. He remembered the pain of loss, the thrill of victory, and the bonds he had formed with his comrades. But this time, he would be fighting for something more than just duty. He would be fighting for a people who needed him. With his gear secured, Elias stepped out of his quarters and headed to the hangar. The familiar sounds of ships and soldiers filled the air. His team was ready, each member skilled and brave. They shared a bond forged in the heat of battle. As they boarded their ship, Elias took a deep breath. "Listen up, everyone," he said, addressing his team. "We are heading to Zereth to help the royal family. They are in great danger, and we need to act fast." The team nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. The ship's engines roared to life, and as they lifted off, Elias looked back at Earth. It was a bittersweet moment, knowing he might not return. But he felt a new purpose. He was not just a soldier anymore. He was a protector of Zereth. As the ship hurtled through space, Elias felt a mix of excitement and fear. He was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The call to duty was clear, and he would do everything in his power to protect Princess Lyra and her people. They were counting on him, and he would not let them down. Arrival on Zereth. The ship raced through the dark expanse of space, its engines humming steadily. Captain Elias stood at the cockpit window, watching as the blue and green planet of Zereth came into view. It was a sight to behold, vibrant and alive. Clouds swirled over vast forests and sparkling oceans. The planet seemed to pulse with energy, a stark contrast to the cold emptiness of space. As they approached, the ship's systems beeped with incoming signals. "We're receiving a welcome message from Zereth's royal palace," one of his team members, Lieutenant Sarah, announced. Her voice was full of excitement. "They are ready for our arrival." "Good," Elias replied, his heart racing. "Prepare for landing." He could hardly contain his anticipation. This was not just a mission. It felt like the beginning of a new chapter in his life. The ship descended, gliding smoothly toward the surface. The palace emerged in the distance, an impressive structure made of shining crystals and intricate designs. It sparkled in the sunlight, reflecting colors like a prism. As they landed, Elias felt a surge of hope. This place held the promise of a brighter future for its people, and he was here to help protect it. Once the ship's doors opened, Elias and his team stepped out onto the tarmac. A warm breeze greeted them, carrying the sweet scent of blooming flowers. Zareth was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The sky was a deeper shade of blue, and two suns shone brightly, casting shadows that danced around them. Princess Lyra stood waiting, flanked by her royal guards. Her face lit up with relief as she spotted Elias. "Captain, you made it," she exclaimed, rushing forward to greet him. She wore a beautiful gown that shimmered like the stars, and her long hair flowed like a river of gold. Elias smiled back, feeling a warmth in his chest. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, Princess," he replied, offering a respectful bow. The royal guards eyed him curiously, but he sensed they were beginning to trust him. "Come, we have much to discuss," Lyra said, leading him and his team into the palace. Inside, the walls sparkled with crystals, and the air was filled with a soft, melodic sound, as if the building itself was singing. Elias marveled at the beauty around him. This world was rich with history and culture. As they entered the war room, the atmosphere grew serious. A large holographic map of Zareth floated in the center, displaying key locations and movements of the warlord's forces. "Crom's army is larger than we thought," Lyra said, her brow furrowing with concern. "They have already taken control of several key cities." Elias studied the map, his mind racing with strategies. "We need to gather information on their movements. If we can find a weakness, we can strike back," he suggested. His experience as a soldier kicked in, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Lyra nodded, impressed. "I will send scouts to gather intel. But we also need to inspire the people. They are afraid and uncertain." Her determination shone through her worried eyes. Elias understood the importance of morale. "We should hold a rally. Show the people that we are united and ready to fight back." He looked around the room, seeing the nods of agreement from his team and the royal guards. As they planned their next steps, Elias felt a sense of camaraderie growing among them. They were all in this together, fighting for a common cause. He could sense the spirit of Zareth rising, and he knew that this battle was not just about saving a planet. It was about hope and freedom. With newfound determination, Elias and Lyra set their sights on preparing the people of Zareth for the fight ahead. The time for action was coming, and they would not back down. Together, they would face whatever challenges awaited them. Building trust. As dawn broke over Zareth, the two suns cast a warm glow on the royal palace. Captain Elias stood by the window, watching the vibrant landscape come to life. He felt a sense of purpose filling him. Today was crucial. He needed to gain the trust of the Zarethi people if they were to stand a chance against Warlord Crom. After a quick breakfast, Elias joined Princess Lyra in the courtyard. The area was bustling with guards and advisors, all preparing for the rally. Lyra wore a determined look on her face, her long hair flowing gently in the morning breeze. "Today is the day we show the people that we are united," she said. "They need to believe in us." Elias nodded. "We need to connect with them. They must see that we are not just soldiers. We are their allies." He had a plan in mind. "Let's hold a training session for the Royal Guards. It will show the people that we are working together to protect them." Lyra's eyes brightened. "That's a great idea. Let's gather everyone in the main square after the morning assembly." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the people of Zareth began to gather in the square. Elias stood with Lyra on a raised platform, looking out at the crowd. He could see the nervousness in their faces, the fear of what was happening to their planet. He felt a surge of determination. "People of Zareth," Lyra called out, her voice strong and clear. "We are here to fight for you. Together, we can defeat the warlord and reclaim our home." The crowd cheered, but Elias could sense that many were still uncertain. After the rally, Elias gathered the royal guards in the training yard. They looked at him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. He took a deep breath, recalling the many soldiers he had trained before. I know you are used to fighting in different ways, he began, but today we will train together. We must become stronger as one team. Elias demonstrated basic combat techniques, showing them how to work together effectively. At first, the Zerathi guards struggled to keep up, their movements clumsy compared to his well-practiced skills. But as they continued, they began to understand. They practiced attacking and defending in pairs, learning to trust one another's instincts. Lyra joined in, demonstrating her own fighting skills. She was surprisingly agile and strong, moving with grace and confidence. The guards watched her with admiration, and Elias could see their trust in her growing. They respected her strength, and it made them more willing to listen to him. As the training session progressed, Elias noticed a change in the guards' attitudes. They began to smile and encourage each other, the tension easing. "Good job. You're getting it," he shouted, clapping his hands together. The energy shifted, and soon laughter filled the air as they worked hard. After hours of training, Elias gathered the guards again. "You all did fantastic today. Remember, we are fighting for each other and for the people of Zereth. Together, we can create a strong defense against Crom." The guards nodded, newfound determination shining in their eyes. They felt like a team now, united in purpose. Elias smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. He knew that they were beginning to trust each other, which was essential for the battles to come. As the sun set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Elias and Lyra stood side by side, looking at the people of Zereth. "We have taken the first step," Lyra said, her voice full of hope. "With trust and unity, we can achieve anything." Elias agreed, knowing that their journey was just beginning. They would fight for Zereth, and together, they would build a future worth protecting. The first battle. The day of the first battle had arrived. Captain Elias stood at the edge of the camp, surveying the landscape. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the grassy plains. He could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. Soldiers were preparing their weapons, and the sounds of clanking metal filled the atmosphere. Today, they would confront Warlord Crom and his forces for the first time. Elias gathered his team and the Zerathi guards for a final briefing. Lyra stood beside him, her expression determined. "We have trained hard for this moment," she said, addressing the group. "We know our enemy and our strengths. Together, we will show Crom that we will not back down." Cheers erupted from the crowd. The soldiers were ready, but Elias could see fear in their eyes. He knew that the real battle was not just against Crom's army, but against their own doubts. "Remember our training," Elias urged. "Stick to the plan, and we will succeed." As they moved toward the battlefield, the tension mounted. The soldiers marched in formation, the royal guards flanking Elias and Lyra. The sight of the palace fading behind them filled Elias with a mix of resolve and anxiety. He would do everything in his power to protect this planet and its people. When they reached the battlefield, they took their positions on a hill overlooking a wide valley. In the distance, Crom's army appeared like a dark wave, their banners fluttering in the wind. Elias's heart raced as he spotted the warlord at the front, a menacing figure atop a black stallion. Crom's eyes were fierce, promising violence and chaos. Elias turned to Lyra. "We need to create a diversion to catch them off guard. If we can disrupt their formation, we have a chance." "Agreed," she replied, her voice steady. "We will send a small group to flank them while the main force holds the line." As they strategized, Elias felt a rush of adrenaline. "On my signal, we charge," he shouted. The soldiers nodded, ready to follow his lead. With a deep breath, Elias raised his sword. "For Zereth," he cried, and the soldiers echoed his battle cry, their voices rising in unity. The time for action had come. They charged down the hill, hearts pounding and weapons drawn. The clash of steel rang out as they met Crom's forces. Elias fought fiercely, parrying blows and striking back with precision. He felt the heat of battle surge through him, his instincts kicking in. Lyra fought valiantly beside him, her skills impressive. She moved with agility, using her surroundings to her advantage. Together, they pushed forward, rallying their soldiers against the enemy. But Crom's army was large, and the battle quickly turned chaotic. Soldiers fell around them, and the sounds of war echoed loudly. Elias shouted commands, trying to maintain order, but the pressure was immense. He could see the fear in the eyes of some of the Zerathi guards as they fought against overwhelming odds. Suddenly, a loud roar erupted from the enemy lines. Crom had unleashed his elite warriors, and they charged toward Elias and Lyra. In that moment, Elias felt a surge of dread. They were outnumbered, and the tide of battle was shifting against them. "Lyra, we need to fall back," Elias shouted, grabbing her arm as they fought their way through the chaos. But before they could retreat, Crom himself charged at them, his sword gleaming in the sunlight. The warlord's eyes locked onto Elias with a cold fury. "You think you can save Zereth?" Crom taunted, his voice booming over the battlefield. "You will fail." Elias tightened his grip on his sword, determined not to show fear. "We will never surrender," he shouted back. The two men clashed, swords ringing against each other. Elias fought with every ounce of strength he had, fueled by his desire to protect Zereth. But he knew they could not hold the line forever. They needed to regroup and find a new strategy. As the battle raged on, Elias realized that their fight was only just beginning. The stakes were higher than ever, and he had to find a way to inspire his soldiers to keep going. They were fighting not just for victory, but for the hope of a brighter future on Zereth. The battle had tested their limits, but Elias knew they could overcome the darkness together. The aftermath. The sun began to set over the battlefield, casting a golden hue across the ground stained with the remnants of war. Captain Elias knelt among the fallen, the weight of his sword heavy in his hand. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and the sounds of distant cries. It had been a brutal first battle, and the cost was high. Elias felt a deep ache in his heart as he surveyed the scene. Some of his soldiers lay injured or worse, and the sight of his friends in pain filled him with sorrow. He had fought bravely, but it was not enough to secure a clear victory. Warlord Crom had retreated, but not without leaving behind a trail of devastation. "Captain," a voice called out, breaking through his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Sarah, her uniform torn and her face smudged with dirt. She rushed to Elias's side, her eyes wide with worry. "We need to regroup. The others are waiting for you." Elias nodded, pushing himself to his feet. He felt the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. "Let's get the wounded to safety first," he said firmly. He knew that their well-being was the priority now. As they moved through the battlefield, Elias saw the faces of his soldiers. Some were filled with fear and uncertainty, while others clung to hope. He understood the doubts creeping into their hearts. They had faced a powerful enemy, and their first encounter had not gone as planned. Once they reached a nearby village, the townspeople rushed to help. They'd brought blankets and water, tending to the wounded. Elias was grateful for their support. It reminded him that they were not alone in this fight. They were all in this together. Lyra arrived moments later, her expression a mixture of determination and sadness. "We have to address our people," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "They need to know we will keep fighting." Elias agreed. "We can't let fear take hold. We need to show them that we're still standing." They gathered in the village square, the injured resting nearby. Lyra stood at the front, with Elias by her side. The crowd had gathered, their faces anxious but hopeful. "People of Zereth," Lyra began, her voice ringing clear. "Today we faced a great challenge. We fought against a powerful enemy, and though we suffered losses, we stood together. We showed them that we will not be easily defeated." Elias felt the energy shift in the crowd as they listened. He stepped forward, raising his voice to join her. "We may have lost the first battle, but we have not lost our spirit. This is not the end. We will regroup, train harder, and prepare for the next fight. Together, we will protect our home." Cheers erupted from the crowd, their spirits lifting as they responded to the call for strength. Elias could see determination in their eyes, a glimmer of hope emerging from the ashes of despair. As night fell, Elias and Lyra stood together, looking out at the stars. The weight of what they had faced hung heavy on them, but the light of the stars reminded them that there was still a future to fight for. "We can't give up," Lyra said softly, her voice filled with conviction. "We owe it to those we lost, and to everyone who believes in us." Elias nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "We will come back stronger. We will learn from today and build a better tomorrow for Zareth." In that moment, they understood that this journey would not be easy, but they were committed to fighting for each other and for the future of their world. The battle was just beginning, and Elias knew that with trust and unity, they could overcome any challenge that lay ahead. Together, they would rise from the ashes of defeat and face whatever came next. Growing closer, the days following the battle were filled with hard work and determination. Captain Elias and Princess Lyra focused on rebuilding their forces and lifting the spirits of the Zarethi people. Each morning, they trained together, sharing strategies and honing their skills. With every passing day, they grew closer, their bond strengthening amidst the challenges they faced. Elias often found himself admiring Lyra's dedication. She was not just a princess, she was a warrior at heart. During training sessions, she pushed her guards to their limits, inspiring them with her fierce spirit. Elias could see the respect her guards had for her, and he felt a deep admiration for her bravery. He had never met anyone quite like her. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling training session, Elias and Lyra took a break by the sparkling river that flowed near the palace. The sun was warm on their faces, and the sound of water gently splashing against the rocks created a soothing atmosphere. They sat on the grass, catching their breath and sharing stories. "I used to think being a princess meant living a life of luxury," Lyra said, laughing softly. "But now, I see that being a leader is about sacrifice and responsibility." Elias smiled, enjoying the moment. "I understand. As a soldier, I thought my job was to fight. But I've learned that it's also about protecting the people and fighting for something greater than myself." Lyra turned to him, her eyes shining with curiosity. "What drove you to become a soldier?" Elias paused, reflecting on his journey. "I wanted to make a difference. I grew up seeing the suffering in the galaxy, and I knew I had to do something. Joining the Galactic Federation was my way of fighting back." He glanced at her, feeling a connection growing between them. "But now, fighting for Zareth feels even more personal. It's not just a mission. It's about people I care about." Lyra looked at him intently, her expression softening. "You've shown me what true courage looks like, Elias. You've inspired our people to believe in hope again." He felt a warmth spread through him at her words. "We are in this together. I wouldn't be here without you." As they continued to talk, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the river. Lyra reached out and touched his arm gently. "Elias, I want you to know how much I appreciate you. Your strength has given me hope." Her touch sent a spark of electricity through him, and he met her gaze. In that moment, he realized how deeply he had come to care for her. "And I appreciate you, Lyra. You have a way of bringing out the best in everyone, including me." They shared a smile, a silent understanding passing between them. Their bond was no longer just about duty, it was about friendship and respect. As the evening air grew cooler, they lingered by the river, enjoying each other's company. But the peace was soon interrupted by the sound of distant horns. The Zarethi scouts had returned with important news. Elias and Lyra quickly stood, their expressions shifting to focus on the task at hand. "Let's go," Elias said, his heart racing with both excitement and concern. They rushed back to the palace, where the scouts awaited them. As they entered the war room, the atmosphere shifted. The scouts reported that Crom was regrouping and planning a larger attack. They needed to prepare for a fight once again. Elias and Lyra exchanged a knowing glance, their connection strengthened by the shared experiences of the past days. They would face whatever challenges lay ahead together, their hearts united by a common purpose. With newfound determination, they prepared to defend Zereth, ready to fight for their people and for each other. The final showdown. The day of the final showdown had come. Captain Elias stood on the balcony of the royal palace, gazing at the vast landscape of Zereth. The sun hung high in the sky, illuminating the valley below where his forces had gathered. Today, they would confront Warlord Crom one last time. There was no turning back now. Elias felt the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He had trained and fought alongside the Zerethi soldiers. But this battle felt different. It was the moment that would determine the fate of their planet. As he took a deep breath, he heard footsteps behind him. Princess Lyra approached, her expression a mix of determination and anxiety. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice steady but soft. Elias turned to her, meeting her gaze. "As ready as we can be. We've prepared for this, and we will fight together." Lyra nodded, her resolve strengthening. "We can't let Crom take Zereth. Our people believe in us." With that, they joined their troops, who were lined up in formation. The Zerethi soldiers looked to Elias and Lyra for guidance, and he felt a surge of pride. They had come so far, and their unity was stronger than ever. As the army marched toward the battlefield, Elias could see Crom's forces gathering in the distance. Dark banners waved ominously in the wind, a stark reminder of the enemy they faced. The ground shook as they approached, and Elias's heart raced. When they reached the battlefield, Crom's army stood ready. The warlord himself was at the front, his eyes cold and calculating. He raised his sword high, a signal for his troops to prepare for battle. Elias stepped forward, his voice loud and clear. "Today, we fight for Zereth. We fight for our home and our future." His words echoed across the valley, and the soldiers around him cheered, their spirits rising. The battle began with a deafening roar. Soldiers charged at each other, swords clashing and arrows flying. Elias fought fiercely, his training guiding his every move. He could hear the battle cries of his comrades and the cries of the fallen. The chaos of war engulfed him, but he kept his focus on the goal, defeating Crom. Lyra fought valiantly beside him, her skill evident as she deflected blows and counterattacked. They worked seamlessly together, each covering the other's back. Elias felt a connection with her that went beyond words. They were fighting for more than just victory. They were fighting for each other. As the battle raged on, Elias spotted Crom in the thick of the fight. The warlord was a powerful force, cutting down anyone who came near him. Elias knew he had to face him directly. "Lyra, cover me," he shouted. With a determined nod, she moved to create a path through the chaos. Elias charged forward, weaving through the crowd. When he finally reached Crom, he found the warlord surrounded by his elite warriors. "Captain Elias," Crom sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think you can defeat me? This is your end." Elias raised his sword, his heart pounding. "You may have caused us pain, but we will never give up. Zereth will be free." With a fierce battle cry, they clashed swords. The sound echoed in the chaos of battle, and Elias felt the weight of their struggle with every blow. Crom was strong, but Elias was fueled by the support of his people and the desire to protect Zereth. After a fierce exchange, Elias saw an opening. With a swift movement, he disarmed Crom, sending the warlord's sword flying into the air. Crom stumbled back, fury and disbelief etched on his face. "This is not over," Crom shouted, but Elias didn't hesitate. He raised his sword, ready to strike the final blow. Just then, he felt a presence beside him. Lyra had joined him, her expression fierce. "Together," she urged, and they raised their swords in unison, striking down Crom together. As the warlord fell, A cheer erupted from the Zarethi soldiers. The tide of battle shifted, and Crom's forces began to retreat. Elias and Lyra stood victorious, their hearts filled with relief and pride. They had fought for Zareth and had won. As they surveyed the battlefield, Elias knew that this victory was just the beginning. Together, they would rebuild their world, and the bond they had forged would only grow stronger in the days to come. Victory and grief. The sun rose over Zareth, bathing the land in a warm, golden light. The echoes of battle had faded, but the memories lingered. Captain Elias stood in the palace courtyard, his heart heavy with mixed emotions. They had won the fight against Warlord Crom, but the victory felt bittersweet. The cost of the battle weighed heavily on his mind. Around him, the Zarethi people celebrated. Cheers and laughter filled the air as they honored their brave soldiers who had fought for their freedom. Colorful banners waved in the gentle breeze, and the atmosphere was filled with a sense of hope. But Elias could not shake the feeling of loss. Many of his comrades had fallen, and their absence left a hollow ache in his heart. Lyra joined him, her eyes shining with both joy and sorrow. "We did it, Elias," she said softly, a smile breaking through her tears. "We defeated Crom and saved Zareth." Elias nodded, but the weight of grief hung heavily on him. "Yes, but we lost so many along the way. I can't help but think of their families, the lives that were changed forever." Lyra's expression turned serious. "I understand. We need to honor their memory. They fought for our future, and we must not forget them." They stood together in silence, watching as the people began to gather in the square for a memorial. The mood was somber as families lit candles in remembrance of the fallen. Elias felt a sense of duty to pay tribute to those who had given everything for their cause. As the crowd settled, Elias stepped forward, taking a deep breath. "People of Zareth," he called out, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Today we celebrate our victory, but we must also remember those who lost their lives. They fought bravely and gave everything to protect our home." The crowd listened in silence, their faces reflecting a mixture of pride and sorrow. "Let us honor their sacrifice by promising to build a better future. We owe it to them to keep their memory alive and create a Zareth where peace thrives." Lyra joined him, her voice strong. "Together, we will rebuild. Together, we will ensure that their fight was not in vain." As they spoke, Elias noticed a young soldier in the crowd, his face stained with tears. The soldier had lost his brother in the battle, and the sight tore at Elias's heart. He stepped down from the platform and approached the young man. "I'm so sorry for your loss," Elias said gently, placing a hand on the soldier's shoulder. "Your brother was a hero. He fought bravely and will be remembered always." The soldier nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "I wanted to make him proud. I didn't want to lose him." Elias felt a wave of compassion. "You did make him proud. You fought alongside him. You must carry on his legacy." He hoped his words would bring some comfort. As night fell, the candles flickered in the dark, illuminating the faces of the grieving families. The air was filled with a sense of unity as they all shared their grief. Elias and Lyra stood together, holding hands as they looked out over the crowd. "We will get through this," Lyra said softly, her eyes filled with tears. Together, Elias squeezed her hand, feeling strength in their bond. "Yes, together, we will honor their memories by living fully and continuing to fight for our home." The stars twinkled above them, and for a moment, Elias felt a sense of peace. They had faced unimaginable challenges and emerged victorious. But the journey was far from over. Zareth needed healing, and the path forward would not be easy. Yet he was determined to lead his people through the darkness, drawing strength from the memories of those they had lost. Together, they would rebuild Zareth, and the spirit of their fallen comrades would guide them every step of the way. A new beginning. The dawn of a new day broke over Zareth, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. Captain Elias stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the land. It was quiet now, that the air was filled with the scent of fresh beginnings. The people of Zereth were rebuilding, and hope was starting to bloom once again. Lyra joined him, her hair blowing gently in the morning breeze. She held a rolled-up map in her hands. "Elias," she said, her voice bright with excitement, "I have been thinking about our future plans for Zereth. We can't just rebuild. We need to grow stronger and more united than ever." Elias turned to her, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" Lyra spread the map across the table, revealing the different regions of Zereth. "We need to connect our villages and cities better. Trade routes must be established so that everyone can support each other. And we should invite the neighboring planets to join us in alliances. Together, we can ensure peace." Elias felt a spark of enthusiasm. "That's a brilliant idea, Lyra. By working together, we can create a stronger defense against any future threats. We can host a summit to bring everyone together and discuss how we can all benefit from this unity." As they planned, the weight of the past began to lift from Elias's shoulders. The pain of loss was still there, but it was now mixed with a sense of purpose. They had survived a terrible battle, and now they could turn their grief into strength. Days passed, and the preparations for the summit began. Villagers cleaned the streets, decorated the square, and prepared food for their guests. Elias and Lyra traveled to neighboring regions, inviting leaders to come and share in their vision for a united Zereth. On the day of the summit, the palace courtyard buzzed with energy. Leaders from across the galaxy arrived, each bringing gifts and ideas. Elias looked around, feeling proud of how far they had come. The courtyard was filled with laughter, conversations, and the scent of delicious food. As the summit began, Elias and Lyra stood before the gathered crowd. Lyra spoke first, her voice confident and warm. "Welcome, friends and allies. We are gathered here today to forge a new path for our future. Together, we can create a stronger Zereth, a place where peace and prosperity can thrive for generations to come." Elias stepped forward, his heart swelling with pride. "Our victory over Crom showed us the power of unity. We fought for our homes and our families. Now let us extend that spirit beyond our borders. By working together, we can protect what we hold dear." The leaders nodded, their expressions serious yet hopeful. Conversation sparked around the courtyard as they began to share their ideas and dreams. Elias felt a sense of excitement in the air. This was the beginning of something great. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the courtyard, Lyra and Elias looked at each other, smiles spreading across their faces. They knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but they were ready to face them together. After the summit, people returned to their homes with new ideas and friendships. Trade routes were established, and cooperation flourished among the regions. Zereth began to change, growing stronger and more united every day. Elias and Lyra often walked through the palace gardens, discussing their dreams and plans for the future. They learned from each other, their bond deepening with every conversation. Elias knew that he had found a true partner in Lyra, someone who understood the weight of leadership and the importance of unity. As they stood together under the stars one evening, Elias took Lyra's hand, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "Together, we will build a brighter future for Zereth." Lyra smiled, her eyes shining with determination. "Yes, Elias, a new beginning for all of us. And together, we can make it happen." With hope in their hearts, they faced the future, ready to embrace the adventures that lay ahead. Zereth was no longer just a land. It was a symbol of strength, unity, and love. Together, they would ensure that it would thrive for generations to come.